What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, the Green Bay Packers podcast for the Blue Wire Network and GSPN. As always, I am your host, Numac, and joining me once again for some draft talk, a little bit 2 weeks away draft talk, is my lovely, lovely co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
Do well. Nothing else going on inside the Packers universe that requires as much attention as the draft.
Nope, not at all. Not even a
Yep.
little bit. We certainly don't have a star QB we're trying to trade, or offensive linemen going on Barstool to talk podcast stuff and their career. Just draft.
Yes.
But no, of course, we are talking the draft because it's a pretty big one for the Packers. The first draft and the most likely, almost certainly, post Aaron Rodgers era. So I guess we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we have some prospects on the offensive side we're going to take a look at for you guys today. And then next week will be defense. So rounds 1, 2, and 3 will be what we discussed today, looking at offensive players or prospects that way. Next week, defense. So if you're looking for defense, come back next week. But I promise we got a lot of good offensive players to look at today with some big RAS scores because Lord knows the Packers need to have those RAS scores in the nines to draft them at least. So not always, but jokingly, of course. But Jordan, I think I asked you already, but how are you doing personally? How are you feeling? I see
I am
if you're a YouTube
my
listener,
Packers.
you're in a
My Packers.
cornfield.
I am in a cornfield. Look at me.
I
Among
love the background.
among the maze.
That's right.
We're in the maze of life, in the maze of Aaron Rodgers drama. Um I am feeling good. I'm feeling as much as the Rodgers-ness of everything hangs over all of our Packers thoughts and feelings, I am very kind of not energized is the right word, but I feel very just kind of like let's start to see the first steps of the Jordan Love era.
Right. Absolutely. I'm feeling good as well. Mostly because I want to thank all of you listeners who came out to the meetup during the GSPN Spring Break takeover at Pilot Project a couple weeks ago. Had a absolute blast seeing the GSPN family and all of you listeners. So if you were out there, I appreciate you coming and I appreciate your listening and hope you guys had as much fun as I did. So with that being said, should we dive into some latest and greatest news?
Let's do it.
I guess let's start with David Bakhtiari. He went on, um, I forget what even the podcast is called, the Bus Podcast with Taylor Luan, and talked a lot for about 3 hours worth. Talked to various things, including his future and Aaron Rodgers, and possibility of his trade. But I think the biggest thing we're going to focus on just briefly is just his comments about his future, particularly saying that he believes that he's probably in the teens if he's talking about his back nine of his career on the golf course. He's in the teens, so 13 to 18, you're kind of approaching the end of his career. So we maybe kind of sort of knew that already just based on general vibe and injury history. But I guess, did you have an in general reaction to hearing him say it so candidly to on the podcast?
No, in part because of where his career has been for the last couple of years. Like we forget that, you know, it doesn't even have to be someone like David Bakhtiari and dealing with years of losing a career or being derailed by injuries and stuff like that. It's one thing to rehab, get back to speed, be a human, and then, oh, on top of this, I want to return to be an athlete because that is my profession. That's a very hard thing to do. And then it's an even harder thing to do when you do all of that and then, oh, I have to be a good player still. I want to be as good as I can be, uh, you know, from where I was before pre-injury.
Right.
So I think that has really informed a lot of the mindset or the comments that he's made too. Obviously, I think part of it is just where the Packers are certainly would inform something like that.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I do like the candor and just the honesty of like hearing something like that.
Right. No, I definitely appreciate just him being honest as always. Like if there's one thing I appreciate about players, despite the probably hypocritical nature of me saying this, is them being honest about their feelings with a organization and just their career in general. So, but yeah, to hear him talk, like you said, so candidly about his future and that, hey, maybe I'm just on my way out. He even talked about how he doesn't really care if he's going to finish his career with the Packers or another team or et cetera, et cetera. That he just doesn't care. He's going to go out and be Dave Bakhtiari and be the all-pro tackle that he is. So I thought it was interesting hearing him talk about just how much he saw the chatter around his injury and the chatter around his ability to get back on the field. I think that bothered him a lot more than we might have thought, given how we kind of perceive some players not looking in the media or not paying attention to what reports say. It came out, or he not came out. He said in the interview that he's always reading like those articles and doesn't read the bad ones about him, but always reads like the good pieces on him to get his confidence back up and stuff. But it's good to know that maybe we should, as fans, not you and me, but as fan bases, be still cognizant of how these players are actually people and believe it or not, are doing their best that they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have an opinion on his they comments when it talked about like the Packers not being not so good this year? Or do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So during the interview, they had talked about like this is like the pseudo Rogers news we'll get into because the news is there isn't much news. He talked about if he was the GM of the Packers, how would he operate the Rogers trade? Basically talked about that he would not trade Rogers for parts like for bad picks because then that puts you in the seat of might look like a fool to other GMs, might look like a fool to your fans. Suddenly your job is at risk because you're making you look like an idiot by the rest of the league. And throughout all of this, he talked about how the Packers might suck this year. Like they're going to suck. And if we're going to suck, we're going to do it our way or their way. And everyone was kind of like, isn't David Bakhtiari like on the Packers? Like, why is he using third person pronouns to like project sucking on the Packers? It was a whole weird thing. People got up in arms about it. I just appreciate the honesty. I understand that he's supposed to be a leader, but I think it's good to know that there's expectations, realistic expectations that they have right now for the team. Because I think you can go in thinking you're going to suck, but still give your all to try and make you not suck. I think he just understands there's holes in the in the roster that would lead them to not be a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I don't know. It's we all know that it's not going to be the same kind of year that
Right.
we've been accustomed to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know.
That was my basically. I was just like, I don't really care. I don't really feel like getting into it and deciphering his comments about hypothetical on trading Aaron Rodgers if he was the GM. Like it's a fool's errand. IMO.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and plus, I mean, everything's so intertwined where he's his blind side. He's David Bakhtiari. They're it's trading camp and they're
Right.
motoring around in golf carts and stuff like that. So it's like I don't know.
Yeah. That's
I
yeah.
yeah.
The Rodgers news is that they haven't talked in a few weeks. The Packers and the Jets being, and that maybe that they'll just eventually make a trade, maybe by the deadline, maybe not. But all I know is I saw today that the Packers had a deal in place with the Jets prior to the Rodgers going on the Pat McAfee show, and then he let it fall out of his mouth that he was 90% retired, and then Woody Johnson got cold feet, and that's why the deal's not done yet. So nice job, Aaron Rodgers. You really, 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 really wanted to be on the Jets, and you could have just not went into the media and probably been traded already.
Yeah. I guess it's good to let the process play out. That's
Yep.
what I would say.
And,
That is where we're at.
and Goody hasn't been the one talking spicy in the media saying about how Rodgers is going to be his quarterback. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
Like every day, I think of the meme like the price of the brick just went up. Yesterday's price is not today's price because I feel like every day I see a various member of the Jets saying, "Yep, Aaron Rodgers is going to be our quarterback." It's like,
yeah.
all right,
Where was
hype it up.
Douglas?
Some random like
Was it like a season ticket
conference.
holder thing?
It might have been. I don't know. It looked random. He was on like some stage, and I didn't recognize the background, or I didn't look that closely. But
Yeah. Um, and it just very like my opinion, not to just keep going
mhm.
on and on the Rodgers thing because
This will be the
at this
last
point
thing.
we
I don't have anything else to say on it, so go ahead.
yeah. But it does feel like the Jets are like nothing terribly new has really come across at this point. It's always been haggling of
Hmm.
we want protection in case Rodgers does the same thing that he's done to you guys for the last 4 years, but with us now. And the Packers like, well, do you want another quarterback? Because there's not many more.
Right.
So yeah,
Exactly. Alrighty. With that being said, the latest and greatest news behind us. Let's hop in to some draft prospects. We both went through a bunch of the offensive draft candidates, prospects coming out of college, looking to make their um, dreams come true, essentially, make the big leagues. And Jordan and I guess I'll explain the process a little bit. I looked at players throughout mock drafts that were around where the picks were going to, or players around the where the Packers would pick that were available. For example, I didn't even take a look at C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, or Anthony Richardson because they're not available at 15 where the Packers pick. They're just not going to be. Well, most
mm-hmm.
likely. So, not worth it. Just whatever. So, players hovering around that 15 pick, players hovering around 45, which is where the Packers draft in the second round, and players hovering around pick 78 in the third round. So, each of us kind of did that and took a deep dive into some players and picked a player that we'd want the Packers to pick at those spots. Um, Worth noting that before we get into it, the Packers have had 17 players out of their available 30 um, visit Lambeau Field. To go through them real quickly, in I think order of notified appearance. I think like basically that they know appeared earliest because first on this list is Darnell Washington, which we talked about like a month ago when he visited. So our Darnell Washington, tight end from Georgia, outside linebacker Will McDonald from Iowa State, safety Jordan Howden from Minnesota, defensive back Jamie Robinson from Florida State, wide receiver Dante the Don I'm so sorry I'm butchering this name. Dontavion Wicks from wide receiver from Virginia. That was a tough
I
one to
think
say.
that's it. Yeah, I think that's it.
Um, Running back Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina, a safety and linebacker Marte Mapu from Sacramento State. First time I've heard of that college, so shout out Mr. Marte Mapu. Tennessee star QB Hendon Hooker they had visit, so that's an interesting thing to keep an eye on for later in the draft, maybe the fourth or fifth round. Um, Offensive tackle Darnell Wright, also from Tennessee. Outside linebacker and defensive lineman Keon White from Georgia Tech. Running back Lou Nichols III from Central Michigan. Quarterback Sean Clifford from Penn State. He's like a seventh round pick, I'd imagine. He was not the best, but running back Evan Hull from Northwestern. Defensive lineman Jacqueline Roy from LSU. Another two more tight ends in the last three here. First one was Dalton Kincaid from Utah. High tight end draft prospect. And then Ben Sims from Baylor, also tight end. And then Northwestern outside linebacker and defensive lineman. I'm going to butcher this name as well. I apologize to you. Um, Adetoima Adabaware.
I
I
think that might be it.
it's a tough
I
one.
think that's two for two.
That's a tough one. So all those players visited the Packers. Zach Cruz curated that list as well as a bunch of other people, but that was the one I used. And he had talked about how in 2022 the Packers drafted 6 of their top 30 visits, including Christian Watson and Devontae Wyatt. So this list could mean nothing, but in a 1 year historical period, it meant something for the Packers to draft 6 of their 30 visits. So
Interessante.
let's get into it. I'm gonna let you go first, Jordan. I want to see who you looked at in the first round for the Green Bay Packers, picking at 15. Worth noting, we didn't do any of like the mock drafts or we curate our own trades or anything. We're just doing the Packers confirmed picks right now.
This is a key caveat. We will do it when something happens. Nothing
Correct.
has happened yet, and we're banking on what we have. I've looked plenty at the first round. Looked both sides of the ball, but we're going to keep it to offense here. A lot of interesting additions. We've talked plenty in past tots. Uh, very tight end heavy draft. Side note, can you name the last tight end the Packers selected in the first round of the NFL
In the
draft?
first round,
It has happened.
is it
And it was a who?
was it Max McGee?
No, it is or
Way
more
sooner than
recent
that, or most recently?
of this millennium.
It's not Bubba Franks.
Damn right it is,
Oh
Bubba
my
Franks.
god.
Damn right. 2000, baby.
God.
4 months into the millennium, or five, possibly. Yeah.
I couldn't remember like any like significant tight end that the Packers would have besides Max McGee in the first round, or like if I thought you were gonna say this like drafted a tight end like high, and I was
Oh
like
no,
Michael
no, no,
Finley,
no,
but
no.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
went
don't
the
even.
first.
Yeah, Bubba Franks. Could magic happen again?
Really?
There's certainly some candidates out there. There's also some very strong offensive linemen that are certainly not sexy by any means, but we followed this team last
Speak for
year.
yourself.
Well, I'm sorry. Sorry, Peter Skoronsky. I think I ruined that name. You had way harder names than I just like Skoronsky, grandson of Bob. Um,
Well, you can't just say
so
grandson of Bob without telling the significance of it to the people.
Bob Skoronsky. God, I can't, is that his name?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I just said it very terribly.
Yeah,
Um,
Packers,
Packers Hall of Famer.
Packers Hall of Famer and Packers captain with the
That's
Vince
right.
Lombardi era Packers.
So some significance there. Anyway, long-winded answer of that keeps getting more long-winded. I'm very honed in on the areas that the Packers sorely need. At tight end, they have two, and they are less than proven,
To say the least.
to say the least. Offensive line, there's some strengths, there's some inconsistencies coming off the heels of David Bakhtiari saying he's on the back nine of his NFL career. Might be good to prepare for the day that he's at least no longer a Green Bay Packer. Certainly wide receiver help. They could usually use some more, even though I would probably lean more towards veteran options rather than top pick. And we know the joke of Packers will draft a wide receiver in the first one.
Offensive like specialists even.
That is true,
Like
though Bubba
tight
Franks.
end, running back, or wide receiver.
It's true, but they've also had people in place that I wouldn't be like, you know what I mean? Eddie Lacy, too, was what a first round pick, I believe.
Maybe.
I'm calling my shot on that one. I think it was a first round pick. Um, so I searched high and wide. Um,
He was not.
he was not
Pick
second round.
pick two round two, pick 61.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna come out and say it. I have found the tight end that I'm very intrigued
You're
by.
going tight end at 15, huh?
I'm going tight end at 15. I see Andy Herman's videos calling out people. Why would they draft tight end? Well, I'm here. I'm here to say it. Dalton Kincaid.
Wow. What'd you like about him? Because a
Um,
lot of people like him.
deservedly so. Uh, for someone who is 6'4", I think 250.
Hmm.
He's not like the biggest tight end that we've seen. I mean, guys like Gronk and Travis Kelsey, who move at the size that they have,
Right.
are anomalies. But the guy's fast. He's really fast and prolific at Utah. He's come out for a year. Let me get to my notes here. Um, I don't even have a stats on here. Does not matter. Played at Utah.
I can give it to you if you need it.
Yes, could you
Do you want his
fill
4 year or
in?
just last year?
Uh, let's do last year.
Last year he had 70
Most
catches
recent.
for 890 yards and 8 touchdowns to 2 drops. He was named third team All American, first team All Pac 12, and led the FBS in tight end receiving yards and catches per game. Before we get too far, I want to shout out Dane Brugler of The Athletic for his Beast draft guide. That's where those stats come from, and which helped me do my waning down of my picks eventually. So, but yeah, he's good. That's for sure. Played 55 games in college over 5 years, including like he was part of like the COVID year. He took a COVID year,
Yeah, that's right.
and so 35 games started, 55 games played.
Also should note, there was actually news about him today that he had um back surgery?
Yeah, he had back surgery and they cleared him. I think it was
Yeah.
it might have been even Dr. James Andrews that cleared him.
Dr. Robert Watkins.
I was wrong.
I'm reading this Adam Schefter tweet as this happens.
Yeah,
Yeah, sustained a back injury basically at the end of the season, and he has been asymptomatic with no pain and no limitation of function for at least 3 months and cleared to play. Packers obviously looking at him, they're visiting with him, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good tight ends. I don't think you can necessarily go wrong with
hmm,
any of the top guys listed. I will not say further names in case some of them are mentioned. But when I was grinding the tape, um, I was just very impressed by Kincaid. I think he's the type of guy. I think long-winded answer become a short one.
no, get into it. Go for it.
My thing is, how much do you prize wanting the complete package with the tight end? Because regardless of where we are,
Hmm.
they're going to draft a tight end.
Hmm.
The draft is chock full of them that they
Yeah,
will do it.
really deep this year.
Um, do you want the complete package? Do you want a guy that is brings the size, brings speed? You can line up anywhere on the field. He brings together, blocking abilities and all that stuff. The kind of thing that Matt LaFleur talks about football players. It's not necessarily about, what position they are and all that stuff.
Right.
And as corny as that is, they do really value something like that. A guy like Alan Lazard, who was a cast off by the Jaguars before he came to Green Bay, really made a name for himself as, yeah, he's not the most fleet of foot or whatever, but he's a very sound football player.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that the Packers are going for. So when you're evaluating someone like Dalton Kincaid, who brings just raw talent, athleticism,
Hmm.
speed, match it up with, okay, his body of work is very good, very solid, but you know that, okay, they're the biggest things he has to improve on aren't necessarily what he can do with the ball in his hands. It's about supporting the system in place and making those gritty plays.
Right.
Not everyone can do that. It's not a like as much as that is can be learned. It's like inherently, it's like, do you want enough to like really like be like Mercedes Lewis or Lazard and just really put people on the ground when it's a half peck draw or
Right.
your number is not necessarily being called.
Right. Exactly.
So I think that's the dilemma that I would say specifically with tight ends and Kincaid kind of like there's other options, but Kincaid kind of, for me at least, you see someone of his abilities and gifts.
Yep.
It's like, how much do you weigh that and overlook the things that he is not that good at?
Hmm.
Yes.
Mr. Dalton Kincaid. I was looking at him as well, just in my brief trying to weigh my choices down for first round. and I couldn't get past drafting a tight end in the first round. Like I couldn't bring myself to do it. So I definitely understand it and think it'd be a fine pick. It's not the direction I'd go, but that doesn't mean it's wrong.
Fair,
Doesn't mean it's wrong. Just not
fair,
wasn't my personal preference. My personal preference was down to two folks, two prospects. Um, I'll give the previous the one I didn't pick first, and then tease the one later. Um, the darling of Packers Twitter right now, including a bunch of the beat writers, is um, Jackson Smith and Jigba, which understandably so. Ohio State wide receiver, just crazy skills, fast, and is going to be probably a certified star here in the NFL. Um, RAS score a little bit above 8.34. Had elite grades in the shuttle and the three cone, but was just okay in the rest of it in his 40 time and just his height and weight and body build. But the biggest thing for him and something that I value a whole lot in the wide receiver position is a route runner. He is a great route runner. His route tree is pretty darn good, and he can get open across the middle. Which, if you've been listening since the beginning of this podcast last fall, you remember that I love receivers getting open across the middle. I wanted our offense to get sort of Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs open across the middle more often. This is something that JSN does very, very well. Um, I said he's fast. He's not the fastest, 4.52, 40 time, but he makes up for it by his route running and his ability to make space. So um, I think him in the slot, along with Christian Watson, could be quite the tandem. That's sort of the appeal of drafting Najigba or Smith Najigba, and just having that raw player to develop for Jordan Love and for most likely Jordan Love going into the future. Further, not the best blocker. That's kind of where I thought about why I not passed on him, but why I took points off for my first round grade for him. Um, Not the best blocker, but you can always be taught to do that. Like it's instinctual in some part. Like you kind of just learn to do it or don't. But if you're a first round guy, you can probably just get the hang of it to not become maybe Al Lazard, but to become something of a serviceable blocker on the outside, which the Packers need within their offense. So I understand that a lot of the Packers fans want Jackson Smith Njigba. I would be thrilled if we got him. Not my pick though. My pick is somebody you already mentioned. One Peter Skoronsky himself.
ooh,
And if you had asked me this question Monday, what's that say? Wednesday? Yeah, Monday or
yes.
Sunday, I probably would have had Jackson Smith Njigba. But hearing Bakhtiari talk about how he is probably in the latter stages of his career and doesn't know how much longer he'll be played, as well as the possibility of David Bakhtiari being traded this year just because if they can get something from at the deadline, it's better than losing him to retirement. Maybe do good by him and try and get him to a contender so he can get a Super Bowl ring. So Peter Skoronsky has some pretty damn good snaps against number 2 pick Aiden Hutchinson from last year and Lucas Van Ness, who's been climbing the draft board since February. Because I know when we looked at him briefly in our first draft preview around the combine, Lucas Van Ness was like 24th in like mocks. I think I've seen him go as high as like 10 now, like in the mock, like the main mock I look at. So in the film I watched, he was getting like holding those two great edge rushers down pat and doing fantastic. One of his drawbacks is he doesn't have as long of arms you'd like to see a left tackle have, but he does great at swatting the edge rusher's hands down to get back and reset and then hold, not hold, but keep the edge rusher inside and not getting us along a sack. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that I saw that he allowed just one sack all year long this year.
I believe you're right.
I'm trying.
Honestly, that a lot it applies to a lot of these guys.
Right. Um, It does. I can't find it for sure, just like stats wise, but I'm pretty sure I saw that in my film study. Um, Regardless, he talked, I think, with Packers media at the combine and said he'd love to be a Packer because of his family heritage and that he's from just north of Chicago. I think just south of the border of Wisconsin and Illinois, if I'm not mistaken, is where I went to high school. Um, but yeah, he has really great footwork, really great first two steps um, on snap essentially, and his run blocking was pretty good in some clips I watched. Like he really gets after it, going downhill and taking some guys and showing them the business, making some holes for what was an albeit maybe just okay Northwestern offense. Like there was a lot of times where I saw Peter Skronsky keep a clean pocket and the Northwestern QB just like roll out for no particular reason, pissing off the guy who made the
Oh,
guy who made the YouTube video really didn't like it. He's like, he had a clean pocket. He had like the left tackle kept him at bay, and he just bailed out for no reason.
you gotta love Big Ten football.
You gotta love it. Um, but yeah, like so, some of the criticisms were like I said, he doesn't have long enough arms to keep premier longer armed edge rushers at bay without getting like him the edge rushers inside of him and overpowering him. But my thought was that if he can't hold up at left tackle, and even like you're not replacing Dave Bakhtiari this year with Peter Skoronsky unless he gets traded, of course. Um, but if need be, you could certainly throw him inside. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan. Sean Ryan is a guard, right? It's a newbie question, but I'm almost
I
certain
believe
he is.
so.
And clearly hasn't worked out. Yeah, he's a guard. Picked him up last year in the third round. Notoriously didn't play a whole lot of snaps. Why not move this guy who's very smart? I think he made whatever the smart person list is when you're in college. Why am I blanking on
Honorable.
this? Yeah, not honor roll, but whatever the big
Um,
like eight. It might be honor roll, Big Ten honor roll, whatever it is.
is
Um,
this like a student or a football player? The
Student.
like All American?
Yeah, like the All American Academic
Yeah.
Club or list. I forget that's formal name, but um, he was a part of that list. He's very smart. So why not throw him at like left guard or right guard, whichever you want to know. Right guard, it's Elton, and just let him work and get work there while you have David Bakhtiari at left tackle. Because like
Yeah.
at this point, it's like kind of like the Zach Tom situation. Zach Tom was primarily a center in college, and he has played all but center with the Packers. Why not take another skilled lineman like Peter Skronsky and do the same thing with him this year, and then see where he fits on the line post David Bakhtiari? Whether you want to have Zach Tom at left tackle or if you want to have Peter Skronsky, you probably pick Peter Skronsky, but still, that's a nice choice to have between two linemen that have been playing very well. So this is more so a let's make sure we have our hopefully long-term franchise quarterback backside locked up, knowing that my next picks in the second and third round have what I think is equitable value to Jackson Smith, Njigba, or Dalvin Kincaid. Because, spoiler alert, I drafted an offensive lineman, wide receiver, and a tight end in my first, second, and third rounds for this offensive time. So,
Oh,
offensive line is gone. Tight end and wide receiver are next.
do you want to go to tight end?
I don't want to go tight end. We don't go to round two. Do you want to start with round two?
I'll
So,
let you go
so
round two.
I gotta wet my beak here with my drinky drink.
Wet my beak. Uh,
So, round two. To recap, Jordan took Dalton Kincaid. I took Peter Skoronsky. My pipe dream. I'm packing it full, and I'm smoking it up. If Darnell Washington is there, I want it to be Darnell Washington. I do not think he's there. Tankathon has a mock draft where they aggregate a bunch of mock drafts and then kind of flow them into where they'll go, and give picks to teams that make sense. Like they don't give like the Jaguars a quarterback in round two, for example,
yeah.
because they have Trevor Lawrence. Currently, they have Darnell Washington going 45 to the Packers. Would be thrilled. we've talked about Darnell Washington in the past. I think he's going to be really good. I would love for the Packers to take him. To clarify, I do not think he's there. I think he goes late first, early second, and I don't think he makes it to 45. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he went in the 20s versus the 30s, and I think that's appropriate for him. But we shall see. So my two guys that I looked at in the second round were both wide receivers. First, again, is the player that I didn't pick, so I'll go into him first. Was Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. So
Ooh,
speedster. What's the ooh? Do you like Jalen Hyatt as well?
I do.
Okay,
I do. I very much like. I think there's a theme in what I was looking at besides just
right.
improving upon what they already have.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Jalen Hyatt, small, not just too small, but his frame is small. He's 6'1" or six foot, barely. I think he's like essentially 6 foot flat. Spoiler alert: I don't like the four number system that the combine uses for height. It really screws with my brain. Okay,
Oh yes. Yep.
regardless, 176 pounds. He's a small dude. Like he's not Julio Jones or he's not Calvin Johnson builds where they're just big, these big muscular athletic specimens. He's a small guy. Fast, ran a 4.4 at the combine, and had elite jumping. Had a 40-inch vertical and 11-foot broad jump. I think that's what that reads. I think I saw I mean Peter Bukowski or one of the other beat writers talk about how his shuttle score was very bad, and that the Packers kind of value that, like the shuttle and the three cone they value in their wide receivers because you need to be able to cut and be agile as a receiver, obviously. All of that being said, Jalen Hyatt, very fast, big straight line runner. And a lot of his sets he got in Tennessee were like stacked sets where he was stacked behind another receiver and got a clean break on his route. You won't see that in the NFL a whole lot. But he's fast and he can really just catch the ball, catches the ball away from his body, which is always great. And the only thing that I was concerned about watching tape was at the combine, he had a few really easy drops. Like there was times where what he was doing was running in a straight line to catch the ball that the quarterback had to throw as far as he could, right? And like that's kind of what he did in college. He ran basically vertical routes and caught bombs and dropped a few of those in that like he like it hit his hands. It's not like it was overthrown. Hit his hands,
Yeah.
dropped it. It's just like okay, it's the combine, you're nervous, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't like the way he ran his routes. Like as if again, if you listen to the podcast, I value purposeful cutters in receivers. You should be rounding out routes. You shouldn't be like you should be wavering in your route. It should be a straight line when you're running, and that was not present with Jalen Hyatt. I think he'll be good. I think he'll be like a mid-level receiver. But there was a lot of things that I really didn't care for that I'd rather see the Packers go a different direction. And that direction, Jordan, is Mr. Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers.
Oh.
He is a small man. Think of like Darren Sproles as a running back. This is Zay Flowers as a receiver. Just like really small for his position, but he's fast and he's like a competitor. The Boston College coach talked about how he's the best coach or best player he's ever coached, and that even on a crap team like Boston College was, I think they had like 3 wins at the time of this interview. He's like, yeah, he's playing for a 3-win team, and he's out there still blocking on the edge for our running back, which is good. Like that's a good thing that for Matt LaFleur to want. Let me pull up some of his stats really quickly. Boston College, again, not a great football school, but he put in a lot of work over his career. I think he had a 4-year career at Boston College, if I can get there. Yeah, 4-year career, 200 catches, 3,000 yards, and 29 touchdowns. He had 12 touchdowns over 1,000 yards in 2022 on 78 catches. First team All ACC, and it led his team receiving, obviously, and had the Boston College single season record for catches and receiving touchdowns. I really liked his route running. He's the exact opposite route runner of Jalen Hyatt. His routes were sharp, they were clean. He put his foot in the ground and cut. And that's just like so great to have, in my opinion, as a receiver. Like, I fell in love with how Devontae Adams ran routes and how he created
Yep.
separation in his route running. And now that's what I want in receivers. Like, you're obviously not going to find Devontae Adams in every receiver. It's a high bar to clear.
No, we got spoiled.
We got spoiled, but that's certainly something you can try to ask for from your receivers because purposeful, clean routes lead to open breaks and getting the ball in open space. He really recognized when he was able to find like soft spots in defenses, like if a cornerback was giving him outside leverage, he'd cut inside and recognize that that's where he needed to go, despite that not being the route he was supposed to run. I just really like it, and it gives you a lot of speed on this in the slot, which I think is the type of receiver the Packers should be going after. Mostly just because they have Romeo Dobbs and Christian Watson on the outside, right? Like I see Christian Watson as the main receiver. He's your burner, streaker, gonna be your wide receiver one. Romeo Dobbs, other side, another good route runner, pure athlete that's going to be able to catch up jump balls and things like that. But if you can get those guys creating space over the middle for a guy who runs great routes like Zay Flowers, runs a 4.42, and his 10-second split was 1.48, which was darn good, 9.82 in for his four receivers, then yeah, I think that'll work out great. And he had sure hands. He had 9 drops this past year, but the amount of drops he had before that was 4 in 2019, 7 in 2020, 4 in 2021, and 9 in 2022. I think that can be fixed, frankly. Like his route running is easy enough to where I think it might have been like a focus issue and not like a stone hands issue. So
Yeah.
I'm all for Zay Flowers in the second round. I think it gives them a really great option in the slot at a position which they need help in because if they don't get a slot receiver now, it's Samari Toure probably, which I liked Samari, but he's a seventh round pick. Obviously, the value and the talent of a second round pick versus a seventh round pick is going to be quite differing. So, Zay Flowers, pick number 45, walk up at the podium.
I like it. I like it a lot. Um, I'm also going to go with the wide receiver.
Ooh, I'm guessing you might be going Jalen Hyatt then if you were
I am going with Jalen Hurd.
okay. What did you like
I
about him?
think I again speed, speed, speed. I think it's something they already have with Watson,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to be able to expect him to be like things have to work in concert with each other. Watson is the pure athlete, just like run and gun,
Right.
bomb away, all that kind of stuff. Romeo Dobbs is very felt more like methodical
Mm-hmm.
or just kind of a possession style wide receiver.
I think methodical is a great way to put it.
Yeah. Um, I just know whether it's tight end or wide receiver, really, or someone working the slot or whatever. We know that the way that the Packers want to play under the floor is going to involve, a lot of play action, a lot of kind of um which not the right word that I'm looking for, but it's the only word that comes to mind. But like the scheme way of playing, like throw the ball like side to side, not just being unpredictable. There's that word that he always mentions that I can't think of it right now.
Play random.
And honestly, it's kind of the play random of
Yeah.
Matt LaFleur
Improvising.
improvising. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm
Yeah.
getting stuck on very minute details, but the Packers will. I'm gonna say this: the Packers will not take 2 offensive players in the first two rounds.
No, no, no. Like that is totally correct. But the
Yes.
point being of this thought exercise
Mhm.
is that there's value in each round, right? If they
Yes.
take a defensive person in the first round, here's who we think they'll be looking at, or who we'd hope they'd look at in
Yeah.
the second and third round, and vice versa with all of the first 3 rounds. Continue.
Yes. My point with Jalen Hyatt is for what he brings to the table, and it's a lot, and it's not in the Packers mold of they don't go after speedster guys with average or below average size in his case. They go for the physical guys that really fundamentally are sound. Devontae, as I said before, Devontae Adams really spoiled us how a wide receiver is because he
Yeah,
could do
so
literally
much.
everything.
He does everything. He can play slot. He can play outside. He does anything you can do as a receiver. He's
And you could do that when you're double covered
yeah.
and it doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
Like that Ravens game a couple years ago, or
Oh, I
whatever
miss
it was.
Devontae Adams, dude. I miss him.
Uh, so I'm not saying that Devontae Adams is going to come back anytime soon, but what I've seen with how NFL teams, especially young quarterbacks, how they really prosper is okay, you may not have the best wide receivers or whatever it is, but you're going to just accumulate just raw athletes that just know how to turn it on. And like guys like we see the Dolphins with they go big with the Tyreek Hill trade, but they also had guys like Jalen Waddle, who they just drafted pretty high, if not the first round
It
of
was first round.
2021, 22.
21.
Forget another receiver that
They
was
didn't have
there.
him in the wide receiver. They had Mike Gesicki.
Gasecki, yes, that's right.
That was like my
Um,
targets. But yeah, it was mostly Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Eagles, Devontae Smith, uh, top 10 pick, if
Yeah,
not top five.
I think it was 9
Um,
or 7, 1 2.
what are the five,
Mm,
four? No,
go
I'm
ahead,
joking.
keep talking.
I'm gonna say actually, I think it's six. I think it was six. Um, they make the trade for AJ Brown, and we're one bad call away from possibly winning a Super Bowl this year.
10,
Um, it was six,
10.
10. Heisman winner, trophy winner. Um, but it's speed, speed, speed. That's how
Yeah.
you really elevate a quarterback. And again, this is all we're all in on the Jordan Love era.
Hmm.
How do you best support him? And it's there's two ways to go about it. It's either getting the skill guys to really prop him up and then filling in the gaps with um literally protecting him and getting the offensive line that is suitable to really keep him upright and all that stuff,
Hmm.
or you do it's vice versa. And I I'll stop my answer there because it'll go into where I am going in the third round.
Okay.
But that's where I'm at. It's just getting a guy that can really. This isn't the most, or certainly not the deepest wide receiver class that we've seen in some time. If anything, it shies away from what we've seen the last couple of years.
Right.
So, Jalen Hyatt, come on down.
Had a 40 time on par with Julio Jones and Justin Jefferson. So think of speed, think of kind of those guys. Um, I'm not going to push back on your sentiment of how you have young QBs succeed. I think I have a different opinion of what I think helps them succeed. I think you have guys with easy routes to help young quarterbacks succeed. Like nothing too complicated, kind of like a dink and dunk offense, if you may. But I think that's sort of the way I'd like to see a young quarterback get confidence and start moving their throws downfield is completing those easy routes first, which is like I didn't go into it was like part of the reason I wanted Zay Flowers, like over the middle guy can get open in that middle of the field, easy throw, has good yard after catch stats, just good stuff. Did a lot of bubble screens at Boston College, so again, easy passes, start getting the completion rate up, and just letting Jordan Love know he can complete these passes at the NFL level. So not that your way is wrong, it's just the way how I saw it. So all right, round 3. Gotta do the last one. This was kind of tough for me, and since we both went first at one point, I'm doing heads or tails on Google. One of my favorite tools. Something to leave to fate. I'll be heads. You'll be tails. letting you know what it's going to be. So you're muted, by the way, if you're going. And it's tails. So Jordan, Mr. Jordan Tresky, your third round pick on the offensive side for
It's me.
it. Hey, listen, man. Fate said it was you. I was heads, you were tails.
Now I'm regretting doing how I did it.
If you want, I can go. If
You
you
go,
want.
you go, you go.
Okay. I had a few different players I looked at. Obviously, that's kind of what we've been operating off of this entire time. Um, One of them was Keishawn Booty from LSU. I was in on him for a little bit, and then I started looking more and more at him and just decided that I wasn't the biggest fan of his routes or his catching ability. There was like, I think he'll be fine. I think he's slated to go in the fourth round, frankly. So not like we had him go there anyways, but I do think he'd be a serviceable wide receiver for some team. I just don't care to have him um, play for play for the Green Bay Packers. Looked at a couple of offensive linemen, including Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse and Cody Mauch from North Dakota State. So it's there's a few like Blake Freeland too. I think he went to BYU.
BYU
I think he's the huge man. Yeah, he's 6'8", 308.
6'8".
So big guy. But you guys already know. I decided on a tight end. Sam Laporta was a third round pick ish area. Didn't pick him.
Another tight end that was kind of impressive to me.
Was
I'm
Sam
just throwing
Laporta?
that out there.
Yeah. I'll put it this way. All five of like the big tight end or the name tight ends. I gotta find him here. Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Washington. Sorry, there's six. Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Washington, Luke Musgrave, Sam Laporta, and Tucker Kraft are, I think, would all do very well for the Packers.
Yeah.
At their value, and where I'm picking is one Tucker Kraft of the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Um,
Ooh.
9.68 RAS score. He ran a 4.69 40. Had a really good shuttle score. 6'4", 250, and he had 23 reps on the bench, which is strong. Um, the biggest comparison that I saw in my tape watching and one of the people whose videos I watched mentioned was that they remind him of Dallas Goedert, who also went to South Dakota State. Sort of a tight end who's going to be a project year one, year two, but has the skills and the ability to really become a productive and meaningful tight end in this league. Like Dallas Goedert was really good for the Eagles and was meaningful to them to that team in their Super Bowl run or Super Bowl attempt. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, had multiple offers from like big name schools and had NIL offers to enter the transfer portal, like including Bama. So he has the skill set of an FBS school playing for an FCS team. In his 2021-2022 seasons, he was a first team All American in 21 and first team All Conference. In 2022, he was a third team All American and first team in his conference, but he missed 6 games with an ankle injury. And he had some procedures in his sprains, that showed sprains in hard to reach places, yeah, on his ankle. But I think he had a procedure done to do that. So overall, he's just big. Like 6'4" is pretty darn tall. He measured 6'5" at his pro day, but 6'4" at the combine. And he just has a really good ability to catch the ball away from him, like away from his body. And while he may not be the best blocker right now, he has the tools and has done it before to be a good blocker down the line. Like I think the difference between like Tucker Kraft and Darnell Washington is that Darnell Washington is a NFL ready tight end blocking tight end right now. Like he can come in the NFL and do it. As opposed to Tucker Kraft might have to work at it for a year or two to really get the feel for it, but then be just fine doing it and be able to maybe chip a block and then run a great route to pick up a first down or just be an impact player, kind of like a mix between Mercedes Lewis, like not pure Mercedes Lewis as a blocker, but that sort of role, just blocking all the time. But then also being Bobby Tunyon and being able to be that target for Jordan Love down the field and in the red zone. So um, I think there's good value for Tucker Kraft in the third round, and that'd be my pick.
One question.
Go ahead.
I feel like this is given a lot to the South Dakota States, right? South, why am I? Yeah. Um, as we see these guys start to rise higher and higher, we've seen a lot of. I mean, heck, there was a UW Whitewater lineman picked a couple years ago.
Yep.
Um, does the level of play that they play in, and the fact that you're not from a Power Five, you're not playing
Right.
against the top teams, the Alabamas,
That
Georgias of the world.
does the production at a not FBS school worry me?
Yes.
Not entirely, because like in his last 2 years, for trying to, in 2021 he played 15 games, 65 receptions, 780 yards. Like if he was blowing the barn doors off of an FCS team, like that'd be great. He'd be like a first round pick probably. But he wasn't. He was just playing to his competition. Had 6 touchdowns last year and 3 this past year when he went down with the injury, averaging about 12 to 13 yards in his um 2020, 2021, and 2022 seasons. I don't need him to be a guy that was by far the best player in the FCS in the third round. I just need to see the tools that he can learn to be a better tight end in the NFL. So I think it's all there for him, and I think he could be valuable as a tight end in the third round. So yeah, it doesn't really bother me too much, like the FCS stuff, because he could have went like to the FBS and played for Bama and other big schools. He chose not to because call it loyalty, call it just being familiar with where you wanted to go to school. But yeah, he had an offer for an NIL deal to go to Alabama, which is the cream of the crop FBS school. So yeah, if Alabama thinks he can play tight end at an FBS level, I think he can play tight end at an NFL level.
Fair. Fair. That was just me playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, and for
The
what it's worth,
Al Pacino.
right? For what it's worth, Dane Brugler said that Tucker Kraft reminds him of Foster Moreau, which is kind of that um, path that I talked about. Foster Moreau wasn't an impactful rookie or second year guy in the NFL, but he
Yeah.
developed into one of the better NFL tight ends, average NFL tight end, not despite, but now diagnosed with, I think, leukemia, which is
Yeah.
very
Hodgkin's
sad.
lymphoma.
Yeah,
Lymphoma.
very, very sad. Hopefully he recovers fine and can get back to having a successful life and NFL career. But before we found out about his diagnosis, you and I both were like, hey, if they get Foster Moreau in the free agency, that'd be a really great pickup. So if you can draft a guy that would fit the kind of guy we were looking for them to pick up, that works just fine for me.
All right. I've done skill players, tight end, wide receiver. Let's get some help. Get some help for old J Lev. I'm going with the aforementioned Blake Freeland.
Big
Your land is
guy.
my land. Your land is free land.
Oh my god. I'd have put time
Um,
out for that one.
sorry. Physical specimen, 6'8", 302 pounds from BYU. They just make him different there.
Yeah.
RAS score. Are you ready? Are you sitting down?
I am sitting.
9.82.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good.
He ranked 23rd out of 1,227 offensive tackles from 1987 to 2023. Historically, that is from at MathBomb Kent Lee Platt. Probably Platt. It's not Plate.
Go ahead and tell the people his freaking 40 time because it's insane.
Yeah, 40 time is 4.98.
He ran
He's
a sub 540. at 6'8", 300 pounds.
Not just that, he set the NFL combine record for an offensive lineman with a 37-inch vertical jump.
The man is a specimen.
Specimen, athletic as all hell. Also a very good offensive tackle. My thing with, and probably because it's more glamorous to pick the uh, Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Washington, Jalen Hyatt, Zay Flowers of the world. The Packers do need help on the offensive line.
Yeah.
They also have done a remarkable job drafting low or finding undrafted guys and developing them into all pro linemen.
Right.
Um, so that was also in my mind of like, okay, there's guys like Skoronsky, Darnell Wright certainly caught my attention. Paris Johnson from Ohio State.
I think
Missing someone
he's
else.
going top 10.
Going top 10? Is that what it?
Paris Johnson is, yeah.
Who's another one that? Oh, guy from
The
Georgia,
guy from Georgia, yeah.
Roderick Jones. Yes. As an annoying car passes by. Um, so whereas I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, the Packers never select a skill player or running back, tight end, wide receiver, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They also don't take. We know that they don't take offensive tackles very high.
Nope.
Generally, because they have this reputation for building out guys that they just find.
Yep.
A guy like Blake Freeland, when you see his athletic abilities and gifts and all that stuff combined with the resume that he has, let me bring up more things to talk about him that I'm clumsily just walking around right now.
For what it's
Go
ahead, sorry.
He's played both right tackle, off or a left tackle. Even in high school, I'm just reading this right now. I was not even looking at this. He played quarterback as junior year and tight end and defensive end as a senior. Like he has, that's pretty crazy. But not to get distracted by it. It's having someone that's versatile and can fill in so many gaps on the offensive line, which is certainly a work in progress.
Right.
Combined with
he's a project for sure.
Project for sure. Therefore, it would be like, okay, with all the questions that you have with the guys that you want to see and want to give them the ability to prove themselves, getting a guy like Blake Freeland or any, offensive lineman deep in the draft,
right?
You give them time to develop and kind of get their feet wet and see what life is like to be an NFL pro, because it's vastly different than what it is in college.
Right, exactly. Tankathon currently has him going in the third round, or maybe not. Yeah, third round. 82nd to the Buccaneers, but the Packers picked 78, which is just a few picks ahead of that. So if it was chalk like this draft would be, he'd be available for the Packers if they wanted to take him. I do agree with you. Packers found David Bakhtiari in the fourth, All-Pro, Hall of Fame left tackle. Like, there's value there. Just their projects, which David Bakhtiari was too coming out of college. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it could definitely be an option for them. It just depends on how they want to do it. Obviously, we have another side of the ball that we'll get to next week that they need to address. They can't just go all offense in the first 3 rounds. That'd be very bad. But yeah, I could see it. I could see it. Well, folks, do you have anything else, Jordan?
No, I'm excited to dive into next week because I think it's the Packers special. They love getting their defensive players.
They do. There's options for them. Miles Murphy has fallen for some reason. I couldn't tell you why. So that might be it. Lucas Van Ness.
Interviews?
What? Maybe
that would be the only reason, right?
I don't know. Performances at a senior day, I think, but
yeah,
but in the Lucas Van Ness is going just before them at 14 on Tankathon. They have Nolan Smith from who could have guessed it? Georgia going to the Packers at 15. Hey man, they already got the logo. They just got to change the colors.
It's true. Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the Packers do this, but we'll get all into defense next week because they have some holes they need to fill, and we'll all talk about it. So, all right, folks, that is it for this episode. A couple of promotions to get into. Before we get into those, I want to just repeat myself from earlier. Thank you to all that showed up to the meetup. I had a blast. I think about it probably daily at this point, and how much fun we had. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, the biggest thing in Wisconsin right now is the Bucks making the playoffs. One seed in the East, number one seed throughout in the NBA. The Larry O'Brien Trophy has to go through Milwaukee. So, that being said, we've got all the coverage ready for you guys on each playoff game coming up for their run, starting with whoever wins the Bulls and the Heat
Heat.
matchup on Friday, I believe. So the winner of that game will have the lovely opportunity to face the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, with the first game at Sunday at 5:30,
4:30.
4:30, 5:30 Eastern time.
The teams that the Bucks have played in the first round the last 2 years. Oh, they're playing each other to face the Bucks
Bucks
again.
again. Yeah. I frankly, or no, the Bulls, yeah, the Bulls won. So yeah,
Yeah.
yep, okay, sorry, I got confused for a second. So join the Discord, GSP.info, go get there to join the Discord and find out first for all the playback links. Playback, if you aren't aware, is a service that we are a part of where we can hang out as a fan base where Jordan and Adam and Rohan and Ty get on stage and commentate over the Bucks game that's playing in the background, and we all hang out as like a little watch party essentially. It's a virtual watch party. It's a great way to put it. Whole lot of fun. Whole lot of fun. Join up with those. Come watch some Bucks with fellow Bucks fans. You don't listen to whoever bad announcer is on TNT. Frankly, you could listen to fans of the team talk, and it's biased, but it's good bias. So join the Discord. Follow all of us on Twitter to find out when those are happening, and also check out the latest pods from the Eurostep and Win in Six.
Also, not to cut across your
Nope, you're good.
promotion, it's playoff time. You never know when we're gonna have a live pod.
Ooh, a little bit of YouTube
So
live
not
pod.
not to put words out there that we haven't
Confirmed
all
yet?
communicated together, but I know that that is what we've done in the past,
Yeah,
and it's very likely it will happen more in the future.
most likely. So yeah, head over to the Bucks feed to check out the latest from Ty and Rohan on Eurostep, and yourself, Jordan and um, Adam for Win in Six. Next up is, some might say, the hottest team. I guess they're not so hot anymore. They lost 2 or 3 to the Diamondbacks, but the Brewers are starting off better than expected. They are. I'm trying to pull it up quickly, but my uh, skills at my move my mouse aren't too good. They're 8-4, 8-4. Swept the Mets. Took 2 or 3 from the Cardinals and the Cubs to start the year, so we're doing very well that way. Go check out Cruising for a Bruising, and with Andrew and Adam again. They had just visited AmFam for the first time as well. Had a blast. Go check out all of their pods so far this year. They're a whole lot of fun and very insightful as they head into their second season covering the Brewers. So, if you watch Succession, make time for this. Drop an episode today on Wednesday, talking about the big episode through or the third episode of the final season. No spoilers, but holy freaking moly, it was great. Uh, I sadly couldn't be on that one. I missed it dearly. I'll be listening to that tonight. So I suggest you go do the same. I don't think any more pods, but the other pod you should go check out is a Repod. That is a segue in this business, Jordan. I hope you liked it. Repod is a wonderful place to go hang out with fellow fans. They have a native player, so if you don't like Spotify or Apple Music, you can go check out Repod, listen there, stack up the stats of your listenership, and just talk comments on Repod and have a new place to listen to your podcasts. All things podcasts. So, Mr. Tresky, is there anything else I'm missing?
No, no, I don't think you have.
That's good. That's good. After a little bit of a hiatus during GSPN spring break, it felt good to be back. Felt good to be back. We're ramping up before we wind down again in the true off season. So we'll be back next week with the defensive side of the ball in the draft prospects the Packers should look at. And in 2 weeks, we'll be covering the draft. We'll have
Ooh.
maybe some announcements to talk about in the GSPN Discord. So go check it out, gspn.info. So, all right, folks, much appreciated. A hearty thank you to you again. And Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.